In March, the Ontario Court of Appeal decided to legalize brothels and heavily modify many laws regarding prostitution in Canada. Many people opposed this decision, declaring that prostitution is evil, amoral, or dangerous, and thus should remain outlawed. Personally, I've never seen the logic of these arguments, particularly ones based solely on ideology. You know, the "I don't like prostitution, so it should be outlawed" arguments. Oddly enough, not only are religious groups opposed to the legalization, but feminist groups are as well, openly declaring that it's now easier than ever for perverted men to prey on vulnerable women, once again showcasing the misanthropic feminist narrative that men are pure evil and women simply objects to which things occur, which of course is nonsense. The whole debate around prostitution shouldn't be seen as an ideological one. It should be treated as a pragmatic one. Because the simple fact of the matter is that prostitution exists. It has always existed, and so long as humanity reproduces sexually, it will most likely continue to exist. Disliking it or believing it immoral is just as irrelevant to the issue as open, wholehearted support. Instead, the issue needs to be addressed from a practical standpoint, to ensure that the rights, safety, and physical autonomy of sex workers and their clients are protected. The big problem with the prohibition on prostitution is that, by making it illegal, we encourage human trafficking, pimping, and drug abuse within the criminal system. People who work in legal brothels that are sanctioned and regulated by the government are there of their own free will, are treated with respect and dignity by the establishment, the law, and the users, and if they don't, the brothel has security. They are clean and drug-free and can negotiate their own price. It's the illegality of prostitution that makes it so dangerous for its workers. This is why the argument that banning prostitution is the only way to protect sex workers doesn't make any sense. There are three big problems with the concept of prostitution being illegal. The first is morality. Some people believe it's wrong to buy and sell sexual favors. Some people believe it's perfectly fine, and others, quite frankly, don't care. The great thing about morality is that it's personal. If you believe that prostitution is wrong, then don't be a prostitute, or hire a prostitute. But morality cannot be legislated, and doing so should never be attempted. The second is that by making prostitution illegal, you take the power away from the workers and give it to the people who control them. When the demand for a service doesn't go away as its supply diminishes, the price for that service goes up, and it changes prostitutes from the people who render service to the commodities to be bought and traded. Human trafficking, drug addiction, and abuse are all systematic tools used to control the flow of that commodity. It's by forcing prostitution underground and into the black market that dehumanizes the prostitute, not the act of prostitution itself. Now, the third problem with prostitution is less about the prostitutes themselves and more about society as a whole. You see, when the government decides that we, as a society, are not allowed to do something, then they have to spend money enforcing that. Beyond the obvious human costs of illegal prostitution, the policing and prosecution of prostitutes and the health care for their continued drug addictions and/or injuries are all drains on the economy, and any money that is made flows into the criminal network instead. Legal prostitution could be regulated and taxed just like any other business, and it would be a net financial benefit to the public purse. Let's use the analogy of cigarettes versus crystal meth. They're both drugs, they're both addictive, they're both highly detrimental to a person's health. The only difference is that cigarettes are legal and meth is not. Every major problem with crystal meth, that differs from those of cigarettes of course, stems from the fact that meth is illegal. You don't see stockpiles of paper being stolen to make into tubes, or some person's basement exploding because he or she was sloppy when drying his or her tobacco plants. There's a whole industry built up around producing cigarettes safely, cheaply, and up to the standards set by the government. The only real legal issue regarding cigarettes is smuggling, and that's more a result of excessive taxation than illegality. Now, the same should be done with prostitution. Take the power away from the criminal syndicates who prey on people in bad situations or kidnap them from all over the world to be trafficked into sexual slavery, and give it to the person actually doing the work, the prostitute. By allowing a legal venue for prostitutes to organize and support themselves, usually in a regulated brothel, perhaps even unionized, we open a legal channel through which those services can be accessed. If it was suddenly cheap, easy, and safe to hire a healthy, friendly prostitute in a brothel instead of a dangerous, expensive, and risky process of hiring some gang member to lend you a person to rape while he or she is high on meth and chained to a pipe, then don't you think that demand would shift away from the illegal prostitutes and the criminal gangs and into brothels? When demand goes down, there's no money in running prostitution rings, and prostitutes stop being commodities and return to being service providers. By allowing brothels to be sanctioned by law, we take one huge step towards protecting all prostitutes and their families by providing a setting in which willing and capable workers can choose to work safely and take the demand away from criminals who see prostitutes as nothing more than livestock. And if the prostitute decides that he or she isn't interested in being a prostitute anymore, quitting is no different than any other job. There's no gang member or drug addiction to keep the prostitute trapped in the situation that he or she isn't interested in continuing.